What was last month, had my first club night, and there was just nothing, I've never felt that. Because again, I performed in front of people, but that was the first time you look out into like a sea of people and they're just having the best time, and it's because you're playing great music.
Hello wonderful people, how's it going? It's Will here, and today we are finally in conversation with the one and only Tiff Quinn. So first of all, thank you so much for being here.
It's okay.
Now, Tiff is someone who is an up and coming DJ, just moved into London. We're going to be chatting a lot about that today. But alongside that, she is also working as a content manager based around sort of a science paper essentially. And you know, there's loads to really unpack with that. So first of all, again, as I've said, thank you so much for being here, Tiff.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, well, I feel like it truly was only a matter of time.
Yeah.
And, you know, especially in the window of time that we've been going through, being able to actually synchronize and have you back in this house. It's been a little while since we've had you in the house. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too.
Now, as I've said before, you know, the main focus of today is going to be all around your work as a DJ. Because it's so impressive, and your growth around that is really exciting to watch. But again, as we said, you know, you do have a daytime job, believe it or not. So alongside, you know, the DJ side of things, how are you finding your job in terms of, you know, actually being a content manager, and actually how did you make your start within that particular area?
Okay, so I'll go back to at uni. I did neuroscience at University of Leeds. Miss Leeds, love it.
Miss Leeds.
And I always knew, like I always loved science, but I always loved writing. And I think even before I decided to go to uni, I was torn between, do I do science? Do I do like law or something like that? I remember always being torn between these two things. So I think when I got into second year, we were doing a lot of lab work and it was great. I learned a lot, but I think I very quickly was like, okay, research is just not for me. I'm more of a people person. Was writing a lot for the British Neuroscience Association on the side, and was like, okay, this is cool, this is what I like to do. So as soon as, I don't know, I got really lucky, really. We have a friend, Lauren Codling, shout out to Codling. She worked at Technology Networks at the time as an account manager, and basically Technology Networks, like in sum, it's like a, I don't know how to describe it really. It's like a publication, it's a science media publication. So we talk a lot about just any, like we have like 12 communities, so it's everything from like pharmacology to drug discovery to neuroscience. Like we cover quite a range of stuff, and it's kind of really, my role was, I just joined creating content at the time, and it didn't really exist. There wasn't a department. It was just kind of like, oh, we have all these clients that want to showcase all these amazing things that they're doing. And then it's grown from there. Like now I have a team of 3 and I love it. It's so fun. But yeah, it's a lot, but I love it.
Every time you tell me about sort of the progressions that are happening within your work, so it's, you know, the fact that it's not just, you know, someone who's coming out of having maybe, you know, as a career start coming and working under you. You know, these are PhD students that are coming and working under you.
Yeah.
And it's so incredible to hear that, you know, on a Monday to Friday basis, you know, you're able to contribute in such a positive way, and in a field of study that, you know, has interested you for so long, based around also your sort of your university progression
100%.
As well. And yes, honestly, really well done with that.
No,
Congrats,
I love it.
because it's, again, every time we seem to have a conversation about it, it seems like it's always taking that next level. And it seems to be growing. Yeah.
No, it's a great place to work. I absolutely love it. Like I do genuinely love my day job, so
yeah,
it's nice to have that feeling.
But the actual job itself, or the company itself, is based in Sudbury. Am I right in saying? But you have very recently moved into London, and you know, that's, I think, a really pivotal thing to be talking about, because, you know, for as long as I've known you, and you know, I've known you since I was much younger, but more specifically in the last, you know, 2.5-3 years, it's where sort of we've built a really strong friendship. And ever since I've known you, you know, we have always shared a love of music.
Yes.
And you know, in my sense, on a much lower level, you know, I finally reached the point of actually maybe picking up an instrument. However, what led you to decide, actually, you know, something that I really want to do right now is become a DJ?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's hard because I think, like you said, I've always been into music. I think I dabbled with instruments when I was younger. Like I used to play the piano, did a bit of drums, did a bit of guitar, and I always enjoyed it, but it just wasn't giving me that oomph. I just wasn't quite getting it. And so I don't know, I kind of quit all those things. I was always that person at uni, I think, that always created all the playlists and was sharing music with loads of people. And I think, I can't really remember what happened. I think it really was when I graduated and started my job. As much as I loved it, I just thought, I kind of want there to be more to my life than just going to work and going to the gym, you know? Yeah. So I don't really know. I think deep down, I think DJing had always appealed to me, but I remember just thinking, is it too late? Because most people that you know, like they've been DJing since I was 16, or it's very common by this, you know, in our late 20s to kind of have met people that have been DJing for like decades. So I remember thinking, is this a good idea? I'm not sure. And I literally just Googled, you know, at the time I hadn't moved to London. And I was expecting I thought, okay, well, we live in Suffolk. Realistically, I'm probably going to have to travel into London. So I straight away started looking at like lessons in London, and then BPM courses in Bury St Edmunds came up. And I remember saying to my mum, this is just the most ridiculous thing. How can Bury St Edmunds have a DJ school? And it was amazing. I literally sent an email, I think, on a Friday. And then on the Monday, the guy who owned it just gave me a call. And I just love Neil so much. And it was just... Shout out to Neil. Shout out to Neil. It was just, I don't know, we just discussed what, you know, kind of music I was into. And he was like, just come to the studio. Let's just have a chat. We'll do like a lesson and then we can kind of go from there. But as soon as I met him, as soon as we got in, like he was just the most passionate person in the world. And like, it was just... It felt like it was meant to be. Like as soon as we had a first lesson, I was like, this is what I've been looking for.
Yeah. Well, the thing I really want to touch on that, because this is something that resonates with me like massively, is that idea of being the person at university who always had the playlist, always the person that was playing the music. Because there is such a, I can't even describe the sensation, the euphoria that you almost get from being able to share music that you found with other people, even, you know, even beyond it being a DJ sense, just being able to share that music. And in relation to your own maybe progression as a DJ, or maybe your own style as a DJ, have there been any particular genres or particular, you know, artists themselves that have really maybe guided your route into, again, maybe the style that you've adopted as a DJ?
So I think when I first started DJing, anyone who's close to me, you will probably know, I was obsessed with Emerald. I still am. But I think it was interesting to me because at the time, she was really championing this like new wave of like UK funky, garage, like real underground sounds that were a little bit raw. Like they definitely were not mainstream. They've become a little bit mainstream, I think, since she's got so big now. But I remember just seeing her sets and being like, this is so unusual, and that's like quite a nice energy. Like she's great behind the decks anyway, she looks fantastic, but also I was like, this is interesting because I've never ever listened to any of this kind of music before. So I think at the time, I remember like when I first started learning, I always thought I'd be a garage DJ. I just absolutely love old school garage music, but I think with learning, like Neil kind of said to me, well, house music's the easiest to learn, so let's start there and build up from there. And I think I didn't quite appreciate how many subgenres there are once you get into it. Like even within house, I could think of like 5 different types of house. So all of those things, I think you have an idea in your head, and then I think really your music, even just my repertoire, has just like expanded, and I'm constantly like, I just feel like I change what I'm playing and experimenting with all the time. Like I thought I'd be quite boxed in, but absolutely, like if anything, it's, I don't know, I'm using it to experiment a bit more.
It's got to be quite exciting actually as well. If you're really guided just by just a feel really for whatever music that you come around. And again, you touched on there that idea that, you know, through learning perspective, house music was the easiest to come on board with and start to understand. But, you know, are there any particular genres of music that you've maybe actually started to listen to a lot more that you feel maybe are a direct consequence of you becoming a DJ?
Yeah, I would definitely say things like electronica, like very alternative kind of weird and wonderful sounds. Like they're things that I take pleasure. Like I'll be working during the day and I'll put on someone's mix. It's I just wouldn't even really know how to describe what genre that is, but it's never something that I would have played before. Even like melodic house and techno, that was never really on my radar before. Like my dad, I always grew up, like my dad loved techno music and real like hardcore house music. I remember, I don't know, semi-appreciating it at the time, but even then, like, we've bonded since over me being like, oh, I've met this techno DJ and this is the mix, and sent it to my dad, and he's been like, oh my, he'll ring me, and that mix was incredible, and that's also been cool. Because,
that must be so special.
It is. It's really cool. So no, there's so much I'm listening to now that, like, even just in the space of like the last 6 months, like if you looked at my SoundCloud history, you're like, this is all over the shop.
Just literally all up. Well, I feel like on a maybe not on a DJ level, but just in relation to someone who loves music, because I mean I've always had this. I just love listening to music, and I don't think I've ever been subscribed to a particular genre. I think I've maybe had certain genres that have maybe always stood out to me, always a genre that I've really loved. And I can actually now, thinking back to it, I do remember garage was, in the first instance was like, I remember that's what sort of your go-to was. Yeah. But when you go on things like on Spotify, with like the Discover Weekly, and you like go from song to song, honestly, and you're like, oh cool.
It's a bit bipolar.
It's just, it's literally it's all over the shop.
Yeah,
that's
it
so
really
cool
is.
though. I really do like that.
Yeah, me too.
And I know I spend a good amount of time looking for music, and it is always interesting, maybe just because of the nature of my work. I don't get to sit down like really intensely unless it's in the summer holidays as I'm in now, and just go absolutely mad and have hours and hours of listening sessions. But how much time do you spend on finding music? Because I cannot even fathom.
Yeah, it's a lot, but it's funny because it varies. Like I do always try and set aside time. Like I think, I'll finish work and I'll, set aside, I might be cooking or waiting for something, and I'll, go on my laptop and think, okay, let me take a bit of a dive into SoundCloud. Like SoundCloud is probably one of my favourite places because we use like Beatport and TrackSource, which are like websites that they're kind of like the two main places that DJs go to find music. But there's just so much good stuff that up and coming producers are putting on SoundCloud. And if you actually take the time to just dive, look at all the hashtags, and like it, sometimes you come up with nothing, but the amount of stuff I've found, and the amount of, also I think the producers that I've connected with, like I do always make a point, if I can, like if I really do find someone that has just produced quite a lot of stuff that I just am playing all the time, I'll always message them to say like I like the tracks. I'll always send them the mixes of the shows or anything, like if I've put the tracks in, and like that's actually, there's a community on SoundCloud which I really like, which I'm using. Is
it a free for all in that sense, where you don't even necessarily have to speak to the person or the producer to play it in your set? You can just play it and then
it depends. So a lot of the time they can put them up as free downloads, or sometimes it's like a donate kind of thing, or pay what you want, that kind of stuff. So a lot of the times they're on there, but there have been times where if it isn't obvious to download this track, I'll just message them and say, I really like this track, is there any chance you can send it to me? And like literally, I don't think anyone's ever said no to me, so that I'll just send them across my email, and then that's it. But I mean, to answer your question, I spent a lot of time diving, but it's quite easy because sometimes as well, I mean, SoundCloud, I don't know if you use it, but they have a real similar thing to Discover Weekly. So a lot of the time, like, even if I'm just going on a run or a walk, I'll just stick on my they call it the upload, and it's just like, okay, these are all the recent things in line with what you've been listening to, and 9 times out of 10 there'll be like 5 or 6 tracks that are new that I'm like, okay, like that. Later when I get home, I'll download those and I'll put them in my repertoire.
Well, that is where algorithms work an absolute dream.
It is,
in so many regards, maybe on a social media level, they can be very fiendish, but when it comes to music,
it's been so
my
good.
God, have they got that right?
Yeah, they really have.
I literally every single Monday, because I mean now obviously they do, like, again, because I spend probably the majority of my time on Spotify, maybe because I'm not looking for specific tracks to play in a mix, but I have dabbled in Spotify every so often. It's just now that it's becoming so infinite that you literally,
it is crazy.
Yeah, you could just go for days.
Yeah,
you could go
really
for days. And obviously you spoke about the idea that originally you were thinking that you were going to be focused around a garage DJ. How quickly after that did you realise that actually maybe I want to be a multi-genre DJ? Was that purely from the influence of your DJ coach, or did you maybe just as you were progressing, did that become something you wanted to do?
I just find, do you know what it is? I think with me anyway, I think with most people actually, you know, music's one of those things where you listen to different things. I'm sure you're the same, like depending on your mood, you put on certain things. And like there's been times where, you know, I'm in a certain mood and I can put something together really quickly and it's like one kind of vibe. Maybe it's just funky house the whole way through. But I think again with finding music, I just suddenly realised how, like we're saying, it's so vast. And I suddenly thought, no, I just don't, it's just too much good stuff. Like I just think it would do it a disservice if I just restricted myself to just only playing house, because oh my goodness, I found this great breakbeat track and I'm like, well, I never thought I'd be playing breakbeat in a set, but if I can find a way to weave it in, I'll try. So I think with like, it depends obviously what you're doing. Gigs are a bit different because you're normally booked for certain things, but I think with the radio shows that's been really good to like explore, and I think I always try and put quite a mix of genres in, because also you're trying to cater to loads of different people. So, and it just keeps things interesting. I personally hate mixes that it's just a bit monotonous, you know.
Yeah,
it can be easy to fall into that trap.
Yeah,
I've definitely done it.
Yeah.
But I think it's about keeping things exciting. So
yeah. Well, I feel like that's such a, you know, a win from, because obviously, yeah, you have your DJ nights, you're going, you know, DJ in a club where maybe you stick to, you know, maybe 1, 2, 3 genres. But as you said there, you know, you've had involvement, really for quite a while now in also having a radio show. Obviously, one of them being Bloop, London, which, I mean, is it every month that you're on there?
Yeah.
I mean, again, so if you look on our Instagram page, you know, a lot of the tracks of the week often are coming from your radio show. And I mean, rightfully so, because they are absolutely fat. Woo! They are fat. They really are fat. Oh man, it's just, man, music is the one. Really,
it is the one.
But yeah, I'm so glad that you did take the route of really hitting whatever genre that you just took your fancy in a particular radio show. As you say, it really caters to different moods, because you can feel one way on one day and feel completely different on another, and also from, you know, someone who really values appreciating loads of different music, for maybe those that stick to maybe 1, 2 genres, or maybe stick to very much mainstream suggestions of what music is. It's a really, really cool way to introduce people to the world of music in a way that maybe they haven't before.
Exactly.
Speaking of actually getting introduced to the music world, and specifically in relation to DJing, as you said before, you know, you were working with a DJ coach within, I'm not sure what his name was. I think Neil, did you say? Yeah. So again, shout out to Neil.
No.
Good old Neil. Oh dear. Thank you, Neil. Good work.
Great work.
So obviously, I imagine you made a lot of progress under his wing. But I imagine the experience of, you know, actually saying, okay, it's now time for me to take on the learning experience. I imagine that was very different.
Yeah.
You know, how different was it going through a learning process with someone maybe guiding you, in comparison to you maybe having to go on your own learning journey as you know, progressing specifically with your DJ skills rather than maybe your eclectic choice of music?
Yeah, I think that's it, because I think one of the main things, you know, you can only get so far once you know the basics. Really, I think the secret to any good DJ is their creativity, and you can't teach that. So I think it got to a point when it was like, we could carry on having lessons and I can keep trying to impart more knowledge, but really it's up to you now to kind of figure out what your style of mixing is. Like, I can't teach that to you. So it was a bit daunting at first, but also it's exciting because it is also just trial and error. Like, I think, you know, I went through a phase of doing a lot of, I don't really think I've ever done a horrible mix, but just, you know, that's part and parcel, is recording stuff and then thinking, okay, that worked really well together, got what I was trying to do there, but maybe didn't execute that quite right. And it was quite a long, lengthy, frustrating process, but it was also exciting because I had a vision in mind of, you know, I was on a trajectory and it was kind of even though it was quite slow, I could feel that it was coming together, if that makes sense. So yeah.
Well, I mean that's in so many aspects of life, isn't it? That you've got a vision, you've got something that's working up in your mind.
Yeah.
You feel like you can just see it completely mapped out in front of you, but the reality of that is much harder to bring about. It takes that little bit of it takes a bit of extra time. But I mean, again, we were discussing before we came on camera, is that the progression that you've made in the last year in terms of just your actual ability to DJ seems to have come a long way.
Yeah.
Do you reckon that's also down to just sheer volume of time of actually maybe getting the reps of DJing at specific places, or is it that you feel like a lot of that's just come from putting in those hours at the end of your day of working?
I would say, yeah, I think it's honestly just practice. They always say it's a cliche for a reason, but practice makes perfect. And I think obviously it was not the best circumstances, but I think I was really, so I think when did I finish? I think I did a 6-week intensive course with Neil. So I think that started in February. So I think just leading up to that first lockdown, so I think I had like 6 months near enough of kind of doing my own thing, getting off the ground. Then we had a few like local gigs, nothing crazy, then landed some radio shows. And then I think leading up to that first kind of new year, we obviously went into a lockdown, and that actually I think was my saving grace of just having time I had nothing else to do really apart from work, to just think, okay, well, what can I do now? Like literally there's no excuse to just again, it was okay, let's look for new music, I just was watching so many DJs play and like really trying to analyze like what they were doing, and okay, what did I like from that I could maybe try and put my spin on, so it was just time, honestly just time. And then I think when finally we kind of emerged from the lockdown, I was ready. Like I felt more confident. I was like, okay, I actually can do this. Because I think that first gig you came to in Bury St Edmunds, I honestly, the anxiety, like I just used to work, I'm quite a stress head, and I used to work myself up into such a frenzy. But again, it comes with experience. But I remember being so anxious before any radio show, before any gig, and I think that's probably normal. But I think it's really now in the last 6 months, like I don't even really get nervous anymore, because I'm just like, I know what I'm doing and I've got this far because people like my mixes, so just trust that a bit more and feel it, and just try not to get in your own head, and that's just made a massive difference.
Yeah, just assured in your own ability, because again, when anything is brand new, you sort of do it and you might finish it, be like, was that was that good? I don't know. No, I mean, again, as I've said, the progression in the last year especially has been insane. And again, you are going to be all over the shop in my opinion. I mean, I've said, hey, now mark these words, because I have said
We've
this.
got it recorded.
We got this recorded, we got this dated, and we got this time stamped. I have said this for so long that I envision pretty big things for you in the future. But with progression in terms of ability comes a change in the equipment that you use as well.
Ooh,
so
baby.
From the start, what pieces of equipment were you using? Because again, this is the thing, is that you want to be able to understand that you don't have to have these like thousands and thousands of pounds pieces of equipment to get going.
No.
But what were you using initially, and then how was that setup changed in as time has passed?
Yeah, so when I first started, Neil recommended, I just got like a little Tractor SK2. It was very small, did the job, just the basics, had that for quite a while, and I still have it. I love it. I love the little Tractor. Quinntssential still uses a Tractor when he does his live sets.
Wow.
So there you are.
Quinntssential is using that.
And honestly, it did me a solid for a while, and I think, again, Neil, we started on that, and then we'd kind of flip between doing that and then the CDJs. Like once I got the basics, he was like, okay, so the CDJ is really, we're using a lot of effects and like there's a few little functions, but once you know how to mix, you can pretty much, it's just a case of, doing a bit of research on whatever you're using. But the industry standard is the Pioneer stuff. So I think always in my mind, I was like, okay, well, when I actually realise I'm going to take this seriously, I'll start saving and I'll get some nice, like a proper deck. So alas, last Christmas, treated myself to a nice new XDJ It's like huge. It weighs so much.
I have seen it.
It's crazy, but it's like, it's a Pioneer controller and it is beautiful. And I think that was it. Like once that arrived, and I just looked at it and I was like, oh baby, we're gonna have some fun together.
Mama, I made it. What was like the first time that you started using it? What made you go, oh wow, okay, this is like majorly different to what you were using before? Was it just?
Well, do you know what? It's difficult because when you play out, like 9 times out of 10, I was used to playing on Pioneer stuff. So it wasn't like, by the time I bought it, it was more just that I owned it and I was like, okay, this is awesome. Like I can really get in. Because again, with like, that you get better by, I guess, like going through mixes and practicing things and practicing your favourite kind of groupings of tracks. And sometimes I did find it hard because you mix a certain way on the Tractor than you would on a Pioneer. So I think it was like that transition of being like, okay, like when I'm actually home practicing, I'm doing it to like how I envisaged, like I felt like I was performing at home, which was quite nice. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a proper setup.
Yeah,
it's a proper setup. I mean, I've been treated a couple of times to a little house orientated DJ set.
Yes,
I mean, it works.
It does.
It does a real job.
It's beautiful.
Also, speaking of a beautiful house, you moved yourself into London. How long have you been in London for now?
Over 6 months. I moved in January. Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah. Actually, I can remember that happening now. And I mean, I think that was definitely the right move for you in terms of a career progression. But specifically, how do you think moving to London has benefited your career as a DJ?
It's been phenomenal, and it's been way more fast paced than I thought. But again, people always say, networking, and you hear it all the time. And it's important, but I think, again, even though I'd moved to London, I kind of had in my mind, I was like, okay, so really it's just, you've got to go to events and you've got to meet the people that are putting on events, you've got to meet promoters, you've got to meet other DJs, and you can't force it. It's kind of like you can't just go to anything. You've got to be going to events that you genuinely like for a start and bringing your friends and all that kind of stuff. And I just found that once I kind of started meeting a core selective group, then all of a sudden, you become friends, and then, they'll be like, okay, so I've got an event coming up, like, why don't you do a warm-up set? Or I've got a radio slot, you can come as a guest. And you start kind of building these connections, and then actually you realise that it's so small. Like, the network is actually tiny. Like, now I realise I'm meeting, I met someone last week, and I played in Hoxton, and I didn't realise that the guy was best friends with another guy that I've been trying to get on events with previous, and he was just there, and he was like, oh, I didn't know you were playing, and I was like, why are you here? And he's like, oh, Liam's like my best friend, and I was like, well, this is crazy, but that keeps happening to me, and I'm like, okay, it's like once you're kind of in and you see, like, it's just crazy, like, and again, it's just networking with like-minded people. It's just so much easier, but that you can't do. Like, there's only so many times I could go into London from Bury, and like that's made going to events has just made the biggest difference. But again, obviously that was COVID dependent.
It was.
So, I think I've gone a bit crazy, but I've just been out and about really trying to do as much as I can, like, getting gigs, but also trying to support other people, because it's just been such a hard time. Like, so whatever you can do to just show face and get some friends there, have a little boogie, it's just worth it.
I imagine your music consumption in the last 6 months, specifically live music consumption must be off the scale. I mean, I imagine that has been absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Again, that is...
I've missed, like, it just feels so good to feel live music, feel that bass in your chest.
That's
it really is just like euphoric. You don't even need a drink. I just think if I've got good music on, I'll be there all night at the front. Just doesn't matter.
Well, again, that I completely resonate with that, because I mean, I think we always knew we were going to miss live music when we went into lockdown, but I don't think you can ever truly understand. No. It's such an experience. Sharing good music is great in and amongst people. You might, as we do, we share on our Spotify playlist, or we'll just send each other tunes. But being able to then share that in the same space, and then also be surrounded by like a mass of other people who are also on that same wavelength.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you can really beat that.
No,
I think it
you
is
can't.
just,
You absolutely can't. And we were talking about this, like last month, had my first club night, and there was just nothing, I've never felt that. Because again, I performed in front of people, but that was the first time you look out into like a sea of people and they're just having the best time. And it's because you're playing great music. And it was just like, I'll never, that first club experience, I was like, I'll never get that back. Like, I've been holding on to it forever. I was like, it was very emotional. Like, it was crazy. I just didn't expect.
Videos? Did you get a lot of photos?
Yeah, we've got videos, photos.
You're gonna make a collage.
It's happening.
It needs to happen. You know, it's a special moment. Moment.
Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, I didn't expect to be as emotional as I was when I finished. But I really was just like, like, it was just, I think you just felt like that was just, it was like musical therapy for everyone in the room. Like, it was just crazy.
It's a massive moment. Massive moment. And again, I imagine that your experience as, you know, from the perspective of a DJ has changed massively, because as you were saying before, you know, you may have experienced one thing when you were first starting, but now probably a completely different thing. You know, from your perspective, how do you feel your experience as a DJ has changed? You know, thinking back to not even Karen's house, shout out to Karen, or Mutsa Mahende, back in, I mean, quite a while ago, but also then specifically in, you know, the place that you did your first gig. How has your experience changed as a DJ from that point to where you are now?
I think it goes back to what we were saying before about like with experience comes confidence, and I think feeling a bit more relaxed. I also feel that your performance is better. I think every time I play, the sets get better, obviously, because, you know, you're practicing more, but also I just relax every single time I come into a new set, and I think that does volumes, because it's all a vibe thing. You know, it is. I think sometimes people forget, like, you know, when you're DJing, it's about the music, but it's also your energy as a person. You are performing for other people, and I think you've also got to read the room. That's quite an interesting thing. I've got so much better at telling, like, instantly what I need to do to, like, get a vibe from here to here, or like feel things out. And sometimes things can change. You know, if you're playing for like quite a while, like an hour set is probably fine, but sometimes, you know, you can play for like 2 hours. I've done a 5-hour set before, so it really
5 hours.
But that was actually my favourite one, because you can really have fun with that. Like, I remember being like, oh, I'm gonna start here and I'm gonna get us all the way here. But it was really fun to do that journey, and like, you know, it was in Brixton, and it was very much like I started very chill, Afro house, very like melodic and euphoric, and then we kind of went all the way to like hardcore disco right at the end, and it was really quite. It was just so fun. Like, I remember when I got booked for the gig thinking, 5 hours? Are you having a laugh? It went so quick, and also I think it was my favourite set in terms of I really got to experiment, and it was good practice for like building a vibe from start to finish, and also adjusting to like how, you know, as it got busier, sometimes it got dead, or what were people responding to. Like, I think that's the most important thing of like, you have to be really aware. You can't just get on the decks and think, well, I've planned a really good set and this is what I'm going to do, because it might not work on the day. So it's just trying to be versatile. Yeah.
Do you frequently end up sort of throwing in aspects to your set that were completely unplanned, that you would just, as you say, you just read the room and you go, right, I'm going to go in this direction, direction. How hard is that?
Again, at the beginning, like a few years ago, I would have been like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. But I met with someone a few weeks ago who actually said to me, whatever you do, always carry, I mean, I've always been told this, always have your USB on you, but he said always have a couple and always have all the genres that you play, because you just never know what will happen. And I remember I had a gig in Tottenham, and I think the vibe was like acid house, breaks, and it was quite, we were trying to move away from like commercial tech house, but we all did a back-to-back at the end, and it was a free-for-all. So it was kind of like we were playing all sorts of music by then, because it was just, you know, peak of the night, let's just go for it. And it was crazy. Like, we were doing techno, we were doing all sorts. And like, again, it was so handy, because I was like, oh, I have another USB here. And I was like, fine, let's just see what happens. But I don't know, to tell my prior self that I would be able to just on the fly be like, okay, you've played that song, I know instantly I have something on my USB that will work. Like, that's something that I'm like, cool. It feels so nice to be able to just be like, yeah.
That is an incredible skill, because I do often think about that, you know, and just being able to do that, because and it also comes down to your just knowledge of music at this point. Like you must have in your mind, you know, so many tracks just constantly going through. Because as you say, being able to react at that time and go, I know just the track for that. Like that really is quite an amazing skill that I imagine is only going to strengthen as time goes on.
And I think it's what people respond to. I always know as well, I play differently. I don't even know if this is a good or a bad thing and something I should be sharing. But again, I kind of tailor certain times my sets to who I know out of my friends are going to be there too. Because, you know, you can always say like, okay, well, I know if I put a cheeky little remix of that in there, that whole group of people over there will just be like, what? And then off the back of that, you'll have a whole vibe. And so
domino effect.
Yeah, and I think like I do that quite a lot. But again, it just depends on who I've got coming. And, you know, you try and tie it into the thing. But I've gotten way more like creative in that respect of like trying to really put myself in, you know, take myself off being DJ and being like, okay, well, if I was there looking up, what would I want to hear? Like, how do I want to feel? And then that's basically how I try to play, basically, yeah.
I mean, that's a question I'm definitely going to touch on in a second. But, I mean, it is so obvious through just the conversation that we're having here that you have been working your ass off to get to the point that you are now. And as you say, you know, it is a matter of time, commitment, just constant repetition. What would you say, and it doesn't even have to be necessarily your biggest challenge, but what were one of your biggest challenges now upon reflection, looking about, you know, back in your journey, that you had to go through in order to get to where you are now?
Oh, it's really hard. Again, I think it's just like trusting yourself a little bit. Like I really just was not very confident at the beginning, and I think it was all, I hate being wrong. And I think it's one of those things you have to get stuff wrong to know, like, especially in this kind of work, I think like you can't test anything. You have to test stuff to know whether it's going to work or not. So I think I used to get in my own head, like I say, I think at the beginning, I was my obstacle, if that makes sense. And it was kind of learning to kind of push through that and like almost stop taking it so seriously. Like I think the minute you kind of stop seeing it as something, you know, I got into it because I love music and it's always got to be something that stays fun for me. Otherwise, you know, it could possibly, hopefully one day be a job, but you kind of don't want to view it like that in a way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's it. And it's trying not to take it so seriously that you stop your creativity there. Because I think when you're stressed, you can't think properly. You can't do any of, you know, you kind of close off all those pathways. So it's kind of, I think, just relaxing and just being like, okay, you care about this, it will come. Being patient, like being really patient. I think a lot of the times I was like, I'm not getting anywhere. This is, you know, I honestly think I must have sent 100,000 emails since I've started DJing to people. And like, you know, you never are going to hear back from all of them. It only takes one. But again, it's that kind of, it's persistence. Like, just don't, you always said that to me as well. You're like, just keep going, I say it to Joey all the time as well, my brother. He's also a musician. And it's kind of just keep chipping away because it always pays off. But you've just got to be patient.
I mean, I do think that is such a massive thing, is that it's also just learning to hear no.
Yes.
You know, because you are going to be told no so many times, but as you say, it only takes one yes. And once you get used to the fact that, you know, no's can happen, they don't then just destroy you as a human being and just move on to the next one. That's when it really can open up opportunities for you to grow as an individual and also to progress in your own career. Because again, without you know, making those emails or sending out those emails, who knows how far you would have gotten? Because you know, if you just stuck to, you know, I'll upload some sets here and there, you know, that will get you so far, because obviously that's you highlighting the skill that you have. But really, the net, and this is where I personally think that your biggest strength lies, is that you have always been an absolutely outstanding networker. Like you have been so willing to go to events, you've been so willing to email people, you've been so willing to do things for other people, and by making these connections. And I was actually talking to Samuel, another guy that I've done a conversation with on here, Be Social Cambridge. It's, you know, you will help a particular individual, you've made that connection, they may help you back. You know, it creates these reciprocal relationships which can just really drive you forward as an individual.
And that, I mean, I have to say, one of the things I wasn't expecting was how supportive the music industry was going to be. And maybe that in part is to do with what we've all gone through with the pandemic. But I definitely, you know, as a female getting into it, you know, I think even my parents had their worries, and they were like, you know, there's a lot of stigma around unsavoury people in the music industry, and obviously in any line of work I guess there is, but I have honestly just met the most incredible people on this whole journey. And like I say, even with the email thing, I remember one of the guys I emailed, he is like one of the co-founders of Masquerade London. I don't know if you've come across them. Huge, like they just run events all over the UK. Really cool guys, and it's predominantly funky house and disco, and I've been trying to get on their events for a really long time. And I remember emailing Ross maybe last year, and then I think it was kind of when we came out of that first lockdown, there was a brief window where we thought everything was going to be fine. So I emailed, but then obviously we went back, and then there was a bit of radio silence. And I remember thinking, you almost forget who you've emailed as well. And then I can't remember what made me follow up, but I guess it would have been a year later, fairly recently. I emailed back, and then he responded, and then I went to one of their events, and then we were chatting. And then again, it was great because he said to me, I now that I've met you, I kind of instantly, like, you know, it's obviously so much easier to get someone's personality like that. But he said, what I'll do is take my number because I've got a few tips for you on how you can email better to get because I think that's part of it is you are your brand. So it's like trying to learn how to sell yourself in the right way and come across the right way instantly, because that's all you have. It's literally sometimes is just, what's this email? Do I like it? Yay or nay? Delete.
Well,
you know, so that was the thing, and it was quite interesting. I really appreciated him actually saying, no, let's set up a time, a call, like, I've listened to your stuff, I like it, so we'll definitely collaborate. We're quite good friends now. But also he was like, let me help you because your email was good, but like he goes, you know, I could definitely, there's some things that we could do here to just try and, you know, make that first impression better. And I was like, well, like that's just
massive.
Yeah, it's huge.
Again, as you say, they've been running events for so long that getting that extra little bit of advice, that could be the difference between you getting a gig and not getting a gig.
100%.
And it's the same principle with CVs and things like that, is that you have to remember that is all they know of you. And you might be sat there thinking, well, I am the fucking dog's bollocks, you know, they should be employing me right now. But if your CV doesn't show that in the same sense as an email, then they're just not going to take you in that sense.
That's exactly it.
I mean, it's so cool that, again, you're linking up with people that have run like a massive events at this point, and really, really good connections to make. But, you know, on a more personal level, what do you think is the key ingredients to making the perfect music-fueled night? If you went to a club or some form of gig, what are you wanting from that?
Yeah, I think, again, it's a difficult thing because to say like good vibes, you know, I think intuitively you know what that means. It's hard to articulate, but I think if I was to approach it from a DJ perspective, I think it's got to be funky, it's got to be groovy, it's got to be upbeat, feel good, but also I think there's so much underground music, and I think it's great to promote that, but you've got to also, I think the sets that go the best for me are ones where I think, okay, well, you've got to play a couple of songs that everyone knows, or you've got to build a journey up where, regardless of the genre, there's some things in there, whether it's a remix or an original, and you just somehow work that in there. I think, like, people respond on the dance floor to stuff that they know, and then from there you can take it anywhere. You can build a journey once you've got them. It's almost like that kind of thing. So if, like, I'm out at an event, I'm very easy to please because I just love music. So I mean, music. It's very rare I would ever go somewhere and just genuinely have a shit time. But yeah, it's a difficult question. I don't even know if I really answered your question. Yeah.
I mean, maybe by the time that I release this, because there's a few to come out at this point, but there is going to be a tasty little thing coming on our end from the 14th of January. You know, our first Serotonin event. Yes, which you are going to be at. And again, because the reason I asked you is it's a question that I've been thinking about, you know, quite a lot recently in the direction of really what sort of atmosphere that you want to create. And I imagine from from a DJ's perspective, because you go to so many different nights. I was always curious to see if there's like similar trends. But you are right. You just want feel good vibes.
It depends what you want. Because
but...
it would be slightly different if you're putting on a garage breaks and techno night than if you're putting on a funk and disco night. But I think all in all, it's still, you've got to have some bangers in there, and it's just, I don't know, you've just got to.
You just feel it. You
do. It's a very hard thing to explain.
Yeah, but I mean, regardless, I'm just looking forward to watching how things are going to unfold for you in the next couple of years. But not as if you have enough on your plate already, but in addition to this, you also do a podcast, the Quinntssential podcast, and this is your call right now. You need to go and watch this, because this is something that Tiff does with her brother Joey. We thought he may have made an appearance today, but it's all right. The timings didn't quite work out, but it's fine. They are absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
What made you go to, we've got to create a podcast? And then as a sub question to that, how much, because I would love to, how much would you just love to spend a day in your brother's head and just take his thoughts on board? It's just incredible.
Oh, I have to say, and I'm not just saying this, I say this to everyone all the time, Joey is my favourite person in the world. And I always say to him, if we weren't siblings, I'm just so sure we'd be best friends anyway. Like, he's just great. But our whole family, we're very deep thinkers, and a lot of the times, I'm sure you've been privy to definitely a good few Quinn conversations around the table. They're very deep. They go all over the place, and sometimes they're weird and wonderful, especially if Joey's involved. And like over lockdown, again, we would just chat. A lot of the time, like, one of my favourite things about spending time with Joe is we don't have to do anything. Like, we just chat, and it's nice. So I think even in the lockdown, we would just have a couple of bottles of wine, some snacks, and we'd just be talking about all sorts of things. And then I don't know if it was Joey or me. I can't remember who said we should just record the conversation for the lols. But we just decided. I think in some ways, I think over the years, people have always said you two would be hilarious to listen to. I think in the subconscious that's always been a thing, but we just decided to go for it. We were locked down and we were like, we're not doing it for anyone, it will just be funny. Let's also listen back to it. So we literally just, like, all we do is just drink wine and chat absolute rubbish, but what was quite fun about it, that was Joey's idea, was again, it started when I was living at home, and we've done a few where, like, if I've gone back to visit, we'll do it. And to be honest, sometimes they're better because you have that kind of span where you've not seen each other. Because I think we got to a point where we'd done a few. We recorded so many before we released the first one, and it was hard because we were literally living with each other every day. And after a while, it was like, okay, well,
I know everything.
Yeah, I know everything.
In your life,
yeah. So then we started this thing where Joey said, okay, well, next time you come across something interesting, or you have an interesting thought or anything like that, don't tell me, write it on your phone. And whenever we get around to doing a podcast, we'll have a really good list of things to just, like, go through. And that's kind of our process now, because we don't really want to plan anything as such, but it will just be random things. Like, I can't remember what. One of them was just a really random shower thought that one of us had one time, and we spent like 20 minutes talking about that. But yeah, and then your sub question, honestly, I don't even know if I'd last a day in Joey's head, but I just definitely would. I'd like to give it a go.
You try to, like, map that out.
It's mental.
Like, I mean, the thing is that for him, it works an absolute dream, because again, he cracks me up.
Yeah.
I literally can't take it sometimes. I can't take it. But yeah, I just love to see how it all unfolds in his head. It's just,
it's crazy. Yeah, he's an incredible human being, for sure. So
big fan of the podcast.
Yeah.
Definitely you should go and watch this. Also go and watch Tiff DJ in the flesh, because we can do that now.
We can do it now.
But yeah, Tiff, thank you so much for this. I mean,
thanks for having me on.
we've been speaking about this obviously for months. We've been desperate to get this done. I feel like we've got it in the perfect scenario. We've got some great collaborations, that are going to be coming up very soon. But I wish you all the luck in the next set of years. Just absolutely. But
also to you, right back at you.
Hey, brain buddies, brain hey, turning that into a crop top. That right there is something special. Well done, well done, you. Oh dear, but yes. if you would like to watch any more videos very similar to these, I mean, I love having conversations with people, so these are going to keep on rolling. Then follow us on our Instagram channel, which we're going to throw. Normally I say this out loud. Now I'm just going to go for a fancy little graphic.
Oh, look at this.
A little graphic. Throw a little graphic at the bottom. Have a little look at the graphic for our tag for Instagram and for YouTube, and that's also going to have Quinntessential's tag down there. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you have a lovely week, and see you later on.